This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Talk Through. I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And I'm James.
James! Hey, how you doing?
I am doing good. Thank you for having me on.
This is the first time that we've had you on.
I was looking forward to talking about Strange New Worlds.
Indeed.
And this is not the James we're used to most of the time.
That's right. I am the other 50% of RebingeIt.
Yes. Yeah, we had Kim on a few weeks ago, and James is on, and we're happy to have you. You've been a part of the network now for, over 2 years, so... and you guys have been doing a great job with the Rebinge Deep Space Nine and the Prodigy podcasts. So we're happy to have you on. So
thanks. And we just did our first Star Trek movie review.
Yeah, that's right. First Contact. Yeah, you released that this week. Yeah. I bet you that was fun to do. Something new.
Oh, completely. Yeah. As I'm a huge fan of the movie, maybe even a mega fan of the movie. It was so much fun talking about it.
I bet. Yeah, it's one of my favorites of the 10, and probably my favorite of the next gen movies.
Oh yeah.
All right.
And grandly, and ironically, I heard a very interesting podcast the other day that was talking about First Contact.
Oh,
interesting.
Because it said that that's what reset Star Trek as we know it. Because people from the future altered the past.
Okay.
Interesting take.
Well, anyway, let's do our thing.
All right, we are here to discuss Season 1, Episode 6 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, titled Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Before we get started, we want to remind you that we provide an early access to, and I hate to say it, it's not intended to be this much early access, but it's like extremely early access. Like in the case of the last 3 episodes, like weeks ahead. So it's supposed to be a couple of days ahead, not weeks ahead, but it's worked out that way. But that's all the more reason to get on and with the Patreon, and as low as $1 a month, and you get the episodes usually within 24 to 48 hours of recording. So if you're interested in that, go to patreon.com/Star Trek TTM, and you get a virtually uncensored, complete with all the foul ups and everything else, and doesn't quite sound as good as the final version, but it's still quite listenable and pleasurable, and heard nothing but good things from those of you that sign up. So I don't have any errata or feedback that I was able to find based on the previous week's podcast. So we're going to go straight into this week's episode. Season 1, Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, is written by Robin Wasserman and Bill Wolkoff, directed by Andy Armaganian. The description from ParamountPlus.com: a threat to an idyllic planet reunites Captain Pike with the lost love of his life. To protect her and a scientific holy child from a conspiracy, And Pike offers his help and is forced to face unresolved feelings of his past. Star date is 1943.7. Air date was June 9th of 2022, and the runtime was 50 minutes, 27 seconds. All right, James, we'll start with you. What did you think of Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach out of 10?
I give it 10 child sacrifices to vengeful lava gods out of 10. I thought it was a great twist, and the idea of religious zealots who shun foreigners and who don't understand the functioning of their own great machines.
Yeah, it had elements of old Trek and elements of like today's Trek. So that's kind of
Spock's brain.
Yeah, Spock's brain. Religious zealots, shunning foreigners, that kind of thing. All right, LT, what about you?
I couldn't remember the name of the episode with the computer in it that ran the town, but I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, Spock's Brain Juvenile Edition without the happy ending.
Yeah, there definitely wasn't a happy ending with this one. I've been saying this particular season so far, we've been getting all of the episodes. I think I've been rating a 9.6 or higher, and I think maybe last week I gave it a 9.5. I like this one about as much as last week, so if it's correct that I gave a 9.5, I'm going to give this one again a 9.5. Strap them in like the Borg, because that's what it reminded me of. Those wires going in his head and all that made me kind of think of the Borg. Okay, so let's get to listener ratings, and I'm going to let you take the first one, James, for obvious reasons.
Oh. Kim V's rating is 8.9 cute kids who we use as batteries.
Yeah.
Wes H, I've actually seen this episode before the episode came out, and I really did enjoy this episode. I give this episode 10 Cities of the Sky out of 10. Oh, so he's on the same page as me there.
Yeah, and Wes is doing it again, isn't he? Is he not LT?
Yes. Wes is doing it again.
Yeah.
Rub my little nose in it some more, Wes.
Yep. I saw it first.
Is there a background I should know here?
Well, Wes has been doing reviews for a website as part of it, like being able to, I think it's warpfactortrek.com. Yeah. So he's been doing reviews for them, and as a result, he got the first 5 episodes ahead of everyone else. And supposedly, I don't know if he's also gotten the last 5 episodes ahead of everyone else, but he certainly got this one ahead of everyone else. So he just wants to remember, make everyone remember that he's getting it in front of everybody else. So, yeah.
So he's like getting the screeners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be nice to get them. I wish that we were connected enough to get them, but I think in order to get connected enough to get them, we need to be a little timely with our releases of episodes, which we have been struggling with for a little while now. So,
well, I've kind of had to put my announcer voice on and say, due to circumstances beyond our control.
Yeah.
And they have been.
Yeah. And listeners, and I thought it was bad before. Things have gotten worse. So, I don't want to give any details, but yeah.
We're trying, guys. We're really trying.
Yeah. Certain things have happened, and they're pretty weird. So anyway, we're trying. Anyway, want to give Brian's rating there, or rating.
Moving on. Brian rates this episode a 9.4 out of 10 Cloud Cities. This was a solid TOS-style episode that reminded him in some ways of Cloud Minders. To be even more precise, the story was almost a dead ringer for the short story The Ones Who Walk Away from Amelia's. Amelia's? By Ursula K. Guin.
Yeah, I heard that.
I probably mispronounced what that word is there.
Omelas?
I've heard it pronounced Omelas. Omelas.
Omelas.
Just like Ursula K. Le Guin. Le Guin.
It's the English pronunciation. I'll go with that.
Okay.
Can I say I'm bad with names?
We're used to it.
Yeah, we're used to it, especially Kyle. Yeah. Kyle, we
love you, Kyle.
Who we do the Lower Decks podcast and Walking Dead with. He is terrible with names. Anyway, all right. So let's move on to our yeses.
Yes! And Kim V, the other 50% of RebingeIt, her yeses. I am not always a fan of kid actors on Trek, but the kid playing the first servant was great. The episode felt like another nicely self-contained episode with loose tendrils into a larger character arc. Lindy Booth as Alora was really good, a very convincing performance.
Okay, we got some feedback from our intrepid reporter, Wes Huntington, who says, this episode was very, very strong for me. This is a story that is classic Roddenberry Star Trek. I love this. I especially liked the kid, too smart for his own good. I enjoyed it very much. The ending was very, very not happy. That's the second time in Star Trek history that an episode was not happy at the end. I believe the first one was Voyager's Course Oblivion.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
I think I might have to take some, I would have to take some umbrance at that.
One of the ones that I don't think was particularly a happy ending was The Outcast.
I was going to say, crap. Was it Best of Both Worlds Part 1?
Well, that's true.
That wasn't a very happy ending.
No, it was not.
It was part of a two-part arc.
Well, that's true, but still, he said the end of the episode. It was a 2-episode show, so.
I think it's DS9 for the uniform. You could argue that wasn't a terribly happy ending.
It's true.
Also, the one where the doctor, remember the scientist, original series, computer-controlled ships. That wasn't a terribly happy ending. The Doomsday Device, not very happy ending.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much a downer. So.
Oh, let this be your final battlefield. That one. That one is underlined grim in capital letters.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one to point out. Yeah. Okay.
And that leaves us with Brian.
Yeah, Brian. Brian from Colorado says, I especially liked everything involving the first servant kid. The scientific technobabble about quantum bioimplants, how he created a noble gas color name for M'Benga's daughter, how Spock seemed to enjoy and even smile at the child's acronym for science, like knowing the speed information travels in subspace, and more were all fun to see. I liked the speech Alora gave to Pike at the end, trying to convey how the suffering of a single child is justified and even revered in their society. It was a good allegory reflecting how much of our own civilization depends on the exploitation of others.
I admit I did not see that allegory. That's actually quite a good parallel being drawn there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw it, but, like, it's one of those things that you don't always want to think about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's making it's again, the age-old argument of the needs of the one versus the needs of the many.
Yeah. But, like, when you see, I saw something a few months back of someone, a bunch of people, I think it was in Congo or one of the West African nations, and they were, burning computer parts, to get the
metals from them, yes. Yeah.
the elements back out of it.
Yeah.
And just the horrible conditions to do that, and how they're basically, doing that just to make a few dollars a day.
Yeah.
Just terrible. But, then it ends up coming back as recycled. So
if you offshore the pollution, it's hidden.
yes. Yeah. And
I will ask the question about Spock. Brian points out how Spock seemed to even enjoy and smile at the child's acumen for science.
yeah.
Was this Spock showing an emotional response, or was it Spock using conditioning of, well, that's how you react to emotional children, and smiling because that's what you do in that situation, taking the Vulcan logical approach? Or was it his human side coming out?
I think it was probably his human side, but I have more to say about Spock and that exchange.
I think if you just look at the weight of your argument, I will go, as always, with Occam's razor and say that it's just his human side.
Yeah.
The other part requires too many mental gymnastics and too much premeditation.
That's perfect for Vulcans, though.
Okay. I just think
No comment.
I agree that it's an extremely well thought out and well put together point, but it's one of those, it's too complicated to survive under its own weight. I'm not saying I disagree. I just think I'll stick with a simpler explanation.
That's why Kim and I do a whole thing about overanalysis.
Well, this is the show for it, sir. You have the overanalyzers present and accounted for.
All right, so let's move on to our own yeses. James, you have first dibs.
Okay, here are my yeses. The helm, Ortega, quoting Noonien-Singh back at her in front of Uhuru. I like that. The grappling cables on the attack cruiser. That just blew my mind. It was totally a case of, I guess if you don't have the technology for tractor beams or anything like that, using projected grappling cables would be the most logical choice. That was great.
In XO1.
Oh, what was that?
The NX-01 had grapplers instead of a tractor beam.
Ah, okay. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I watched Enterprise and not DS9, so.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of Enterprise, but I did not remember the grappling hooks. That's a good one. Lieutenant Pike, a little bit of humor, not realizing his rank had increased. The alien race with super advanced medical tech. The Bioshock city of Columbia that they'd renamed to Magellan. Or it could be one of the cities from Myst. But I might be dating myself there.
Yes, and I would go with Columbia.
Yep. Captain Sexy Time with hot ex-girlfriend who wants to hook up. Yes, there. Uhuru. I don't need to say anything more. Super smart kid, like Wesley, but the difference here is you wouldn't want to put him in the chair. The captain being offered a chance to avoid his future and stay on Magellan. Sacrificing children to vengeful lava gods. The horrified Pike look at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Pike's comment, damn right I'm going. Love it. The flip communicator. Sorry, still the absolute best device, or my favorite device from Star Trek. Flips the thing up and leaves. Love it. Love the communicators. And Dr. Elder Gamal sharing treatment details with Mbenga.
Which was actually, if there was a tiny flicker of heartwarmedness, that was it.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was showing the positive that when he was separated from, or realized the moral bankruptcy of his superior race that don't share anything, and it cost him his own kid, that he was prepared to help Mbenga.
Yeah.
Not follow the norms of the society.
At least to an extent, because he didn't, he said, well, this is just a treatment. He didn't give him the cure, but.
Yeah. Well, he has a get out for that, which was they could cure it on Magellan, and he might be persona non grata.
Yeah.
Back on the homeworlds, considering what he did.
Right.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's my turn.
It is your turn.
And for one of my yeses, to just sort of segue into what James said, that not only did Captain Pike have his perfect hair, but he had perfect post-coitus hair, because as he was snuggling after sexy time, his hair was still perfect.
That's true. He does have very impressive hair.
He has very so much so that I found a magazine article today where that's actually one of the things people keep talking about is Pike's peak.
Yep. Yeah, the other James has been talking about it with us, but it turns out that it is more than just it's a thing.
It's more than just our favorite one-legged sailor.
Yeah.
Apparently everybody's talking about Pike's hair.
I can totally dig the hair bit. It's an important part of Rebinge Deep Space Nine. We have to talk about the hair. One of the big things that's happened so far, we're up to season 5, episode 13. Kira Nerese's perfect hair has returned.
It's true. But Kira has perfect hair. Sisko has no hair. And Chief O'Brien is losing his hair.
Yeah, and there are certain times you definitely see where he refuses to go to the barbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, other than our sudden tonsorial sidebar, I really enjoyed Lon being security chief. That her character is I'm starting to warm up to her a little bit. The fact that she is the quintessential hard-ass security chief, that I could totally see that she's not going to lose any red shirts on her watch, or she's going to make double damn sure that they're ready, trained, prepared. I had to cackle a lot over the "don't touch this." Only because that there's an RP that I've been involved in for several years, and that's one of the running jokes is, don't touch this, don't touch that. And sad to say that I am a notorious thing toucher, but the fact that she's not just a hard ass. You can tell that she's got that investigative edge. She's, looking at all the angles. She's paying attention to things. And while I'm still dubious about the fact she's a Noonien-Singh, if they took that element away from her, I still would love her character thus far. Because I think that, especially the way that her character is being played, just absolutely like the fact that, you know, she's, I don't want to, since you're here, James, you know, she can be very Odo-esque.
Yes.
But she's got a soft side, but she's also, I don't think, quite as abrupt as Odo.
Yeah.
But she's definitely a security chief to be reckoned with.
Well, she also has an enormous amount of emotional damage, which really points to also a Garrick style of her emotional development seems stunted because of what happened in her past.
Well, and that seems to be a trope of modern Star Trek, that everybody has a tragic backstory.
Yeah. Well, it also reminds me of Lower Decks, the character Shax,
Yeah.
who I really like, and how he kind of flies off the handle because he was fighting the Cardassians during the invasion, from the sound of it.
Mm-hmm. Shax is one of our favorite characters. If you've listened to us talk about Lower Decks, you know that we've had some Shax moments. One of my big yeses was, don't shoot at my Enterprise. Don't shoot at my Enterprise or else. It was just that last act of defiance. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to do it. Pew, pew. And maybe they are advanced. Maybe they do have quantum medicine that can cure all diseases. But our phasers are bigger than your phasers. I laughed over the sequence where Uhura shot him a little too hard. And I had to go back to one of my favorite movies, Princess Bride. It's like maybe you jogged him a little too hard. But that whole sequence was, while I was going, well, okay, they are a warp culture, so you're not going to quite get into trouble with Prime Directive, but I don't know how well it's going to go over. You know, you were acting in self-defense, but you shot them down, and you shot them down pretty hard, and there were no survivors that we knew of.
Although they didn't find any bodies, and it does sound like people on the ship did manage to escape.
Well, granted, that the lack of bodies does not mean they were all hands perished.
They're blown out into space or something. They lost them.
And I will say as another yes, the Federation never shoots first. We may shoot conclusively, but we don't shoot first.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because we're the good guys. And I know Brian is burbling in the background wanting to say, but what about the Vulcan hello? Well, we're still the Federation and we don't shoot first.
You could argue that the Vulcans were not part of the Federation at the time. Right? Because didn't that take place before they were in the Federation? The Vulcan hello? Yeah.
The original Vulcan hello was prior to the Federation.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So they don't do that anymore?
No. That we know of.
Yeah, it does seem to be a very appropriate way to greet Klingons, though.
Yes.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Hi, how you doing? Pew, pew, pew. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it working for the Klingons. Let's see. As far as I'm concerned, I guess I liked Non as well. Or Lon. I said Non. That's the other show. Lon, and kind of, being tough but fair with Uhura. What else? I liked the twist. It had a good twist ending, and it was an ending that I didn't see coming, and I always enjoy something that has a twist ending.
I would share that sentiment. I didn't see it coming until, I think, when the kid was being part of the procession. I think that was the bit where I suddenly went, wait, are they going to throw him into a volcano?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is turning into very Joe and the Volcano.
Yes.
Well, especially, what was it? Science Service Sacrifice? Is that what it was?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
So if I understand it correctly, the science part was that the kid sacrificed, and the sacrifice was that he sacrificed his brain to provide the service of the rest of for the service of the rest of the world. Now, a very science fiction-y, very moral type of story. I think it was good on those points. I remember like Ruthie said something like in our little chat, she said, these are the best kind of Star Trek stories. I do like the ones that make you think. And this one was certainly one of the ones that would make me think. It wasn't my favorite, though. It's probably one of my least two favorites of the episode so far. However, and I've said this the last 2 or 3 episodes, when an episode gets a 9.5, you can't say much about it being, well, it's my least favorite episode. Because it's like, okay, if an episode gets to like a 7 or a 6, and that's your least favorite episode, okay, that's something to talk about. When it's a 9.5 and that's your least favorite, that tells me that they're all really, really good and you have to pick a favorite. So, essentially that's what I'm saying here, is that they've all been good. All 6 episodes have been outstanding, to a level that we haven't seen in the new Star Trek to date. None of the shows have had their first 6 episodes that have been at this level and consistent. There's always been at least 1 or 2 kind of like ones that just were not so good out of the start. And I'm not so worried about this show and its ending, because it's episodic. So I'm not worried about it laying an egg at the end of Picard, because it's not like Picard and it needs to, hit the landing, as LT likes to say.
Right.
There's no worry about that, because it doesn't have to. It only needs to carry forward the character arcs, and I think that's a much lighter load to carry at the end. So anyway,
and it's the same sort of thing you said, Brian, is we're not talking about, do you want to eat pizza or do you want to eat gruel? This is not like a good choice and a bad choice. That just from my point, I'm not going to, jump on the wagon and throw you in it too. I've rated all of these episodes very high in comparison to this past season of Fear the Walking Dead. I've liked all the episodes. I think that what we've run into is hopefully what you were getting at, and it's the same thing that I'm saying, is you've got great episodes that are only slightly less great to compare and contrast, as opposed to a really great episode and a clunker.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
That I don't think they've had any really bad episodes so far.
They haven't even had any good episodes. They've all been great episodes. It's just a level of greatness,
My question for this would come down to, is it because we don't have 26 episode seasons and that we don't have the budgetary constraints and the filler writing constraints? If we look at the classic runs of these shows, and of all shows, you would see there were definite episodes where it was like, yeah, like we've hit the budget. We're running expensive. Let's put something cheap out. Let's run a filler episode. And sometimes those simple episodes work, and other times it's like painful. And if you look at like the Netflix shows, etc., we saw that a lot with those. There'd be, out of the 12 that they'd make, there'd be 6 great ones, and there'd be 6 that were like, yeah, you cranked this out in an hour, didn't you?
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about with serialized episodes.
Yeah.
That you don't have as much real estate to play around. And I think that with the shorter seasons, if they have a clunk episode, it hurts them more.
Yeah.
Because they don't have as much time to recover. But as you said, because there's a shorter season, you don't necessarily run into the problem of the writer's room is meeting after a long holiday weekend and we're all kind of tired and hungover trying to figure out what to crank out for this week.
Yeah.
All right. So now it is time for our no's.
No!
Well, I will take Kim's no. First of all, killing the kid, not very Trek. And then she goes on to say, apart from killing the kid, this episode felt like I'd seen it before. There are echoes of When the Bow Breaks, Next Generation, Season 1. So, have all the Star Trek stories been done before? Question mark. I don't think so. I mean, there is the argument that every story's been told, just now stories are variations of things that have already been done. I don't think so. You can draw parallels with Spock's brain. You can draw parallels with When the Bow Breaks. I know. I think it works. It was a different take on it.
You could draw a lot of parallels about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Wes from Minnesota is up next and says, the way the kid was entered into that chamber, I felt his pain. You know how sometimes you can feel others' pain without having to experience it yourself? That's how I felt with that.
And the real giveaway for how painful it was when Pike looked at what looked like rotted corpse of the previous host.
Yeah. If you're trying to get somebody to willingly go into a chamber where they're going to be plugged up to a machine and have wires injected into their heads, probably not a good idea to tote the shriveled up corpse of your predecessor out where they can see them.
Yeah. She's fine. She's just resting.
With joy and gratitude. With joy and oh. I think that's how it went.
Yep.
Which joy and gratitude are in the Spot the References section this week. So, yes. Brian from Colorado says, this episode fell somewhat flat to me compared with the rest of the series so far. Perhaps this was because it didn't focus on fleshing out the backstory of one of the main characters like the others have. Pike's unenlightened reaction at the end by not seeing the point of view of the Omelas society, even threatening to violate the Prime Directive to interfere with their customs, was disappointing to me as well. And I felt that it wasn't in character for him. I was disappointed how they wrote Pike in this episode. Interesting.
Yeah.
I do see your point, though. The fact that it was kind of an unenlightened view. You know, he wasn't able to really see what was actually going on. So,
is it unenlightened? I would completely disagree with that take on it.
Yeah.
It is, you're looking at a society that uses children for its own benefit. They could leave and move to the other planet, the colony, which, okay, it might have been tough, might not have been quite as nice, but you kill a lot less children there. So it's not really an unenlightened view. I look at this from a Deep Space Nine perspective. I look at this as the same problem you have with the Trills and the episode, and I completely spaced out which episode it was, where they have to go back to Trill because Dax has a suppressed memory. Right. And you find out about how the Trill pretty much look at the unjoined Trill as a disposable asset. Oh, the symbiont's in danger. We're just going to whip it out of Dax, put it in another Trill, and she's going to die. Bummer. And, Sisko was pretty upset about that. He forced them effectively to help Dax at the threat of collapsing their society by revealing the truth. So the Federation's run into this before, even with Federation members, and has basically violated the Prime Directive, perhaps. Certainly interfered with the internal politics of nations. I don't see it as out of place that you would have an unenlightened reaction when you find something that is completely alien to your moral code and what your society is supposed to be based on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to say, yep, that's why we spent however many years in Vietnam trying to make democracy and save the world from communism.
And we succeeded.
Eventually.
All right. We are on our nose. So, James, what do you have for nose?
Okay. I do not have many no's, but my big no is you don't let the cadet control the weapon systems in a combat situation. This is like giving the squaddy the really big weapons. They're going to do something stupid.
Yeah, but everybody knows the most dangerous thing in the world is a second lieutenant with a map, a compass, and a radio.
Oh, dear.
And having been a squaddy with a very large weapon, I take great umbrage to that, sir.
I had some friends who were Royal Signal Corps, and one of their funny stories was they were doing radio testing of radio hardware, field testing of it. And as they described it, somebody gave it to a squaddy, broken 5 minutes later.
It's true. Well, I was trying to think of my nose, and I'm kind of on the fence on my no, because do you interfere in this, culture's process just because you don't want this kid that you've kind of started to like to get strapped to a machine?
Yeah.
And I understand that, Pike's girlfriend was doing and the lava will flow and the sky will fall and bad things will happen.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going, really? Do we know that for sure? Really? Exactly what is he hooked to? Is this just, he's hooked to the air conditioner or, but the other side of it is, how many times have we let things go where we didn't interfere because we're going, well, we can't interfere. It's their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as it bugs me that they stuck the kid in the machine, I don't know. I think the biggest problem that I had was, so we know that the other people on the colony were on a Class L planet, which Class L is habitable, but not nice.
Yeah.
And my biggest no was that we never got really enough backstory on them. That we know that the people on the colony were trying to do something to save the kid, or were they just trying to bring down the process? Because, even Mr. Bad Amulet there really never explained much on why he was doing what he was doing. If I have an objection to this episode, we never got that part of the story fleshed out enough for me to really have a strong opinion other than my normal one of why they shouldn't have strapped the kid to the box.
Yeah.
I guess if they would have explained about the colony more, if they would have explained about the people that were the, break off and we're rejecting your society a little more, because we've done that story before. We've had the logic extremists and the offshoot Vulcan group.
Oh, Spock's brother, was
Enterprise.
Savick?
Well, right, but the one I was remembering was in the Vulcan run in Enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still, I guess I could have felt more strongly had we had a more compelling reason why, other than just the pure emotional thing of they're strapping a 10-year-old into a computer.
Do you want an over-analysis point here?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. This also might involve headcanon. I saw it as a religious move in the society. They had a fervent belief in this system, and Brian pointed out how the skies would fall, the machine would fail, they'd dive into the lava without any explanation. I thought, to me, this all felt like a question of faith, that this was all a faith-based society, that the belief in the machine. She even makes a comment about how they really don't understand how it works, and they've tried doing some research. They went onto Google, looked at the first page, and went, nope, we don't know how it works.
Maybe it's like the Jeffrey Combs AI in Lower Decks. He turns into, I can't remember the name of that particular one. Of course, there's been, was it? Landrew? Is it Landrew in TOS?
Yep. That's the one I was looking for before.
Landrew.
So the people who are on this colony are rejecting this faith of the homeworld. And I point to that with the reaction of the guard who betrayed or tried to protect the kid and was going against their society. He criticized the world that they were living on, that he would rather not be there, was the take. So this is why I looked at it as this might be a technologically advanced but regressed society, that they've reached a point of warp technology. They have this extremely effective medical systems, etc., but they actually don't have any understanding of it. That society-wise, they have regressed back to basically medieval beliefs. You need to sacrifice this kid or the sky will fall, the lava will rise, and they don't have any understanding. Now, this might all be headcanon and supposition.
Maybe the sky will fall and maybe the lava will rise if they sort of explained more about what the machine actually does. I mean, I can see your point where what is the one thing that has sort of defined Federation culture, that even though they've made technological advances, they still have the desire to go out and learn and find out things and experience things. And because this culture has largely kept to itself and stayed at home, then that's sort of the argument of we need a challenge. We need to grow and adapt to keep our minds expanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I would agree with that. And the lack of the expanding the mind means they've basically regressed.
Well, it's the same argument you make to wheel another genre out. If you've ever read anything in the Warhammer 40K universe, that they have technology, but the knowledge to repair it and build new technology has fallen.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of thing. You have these machines, but they have no real understanding of how to make new ones. Okay. And this is where I get to poke Brian and go, "Hey, Brian, have you got any notes?"
No, I'm here. I just wasn't sure that you were done. That's what we
I'm
miss
done.
from the audiovisual portion. There was one thing that kind of bugged me, and that was the exchange between whatever the kid's name was and Spock, where he asked him, basically, what's the speed of subspace? Spock says, I believe it is roughly 52,000 times the speed of light. I gotta say, that is not a valid response for Spock. It's just not precise enough. We've seen Spock before, and Spock gives exact amounts, right? He wouldn't say it is roughly 52,000 times. He would say, it is 52,031.7 times the speed of light.
I think he would also ask how many digits of precision you would like the answer in.
He probably would. So it kind of bugged me that he said, I believe it is roughly, because like I say, I just don't see him saying that at all to anyone.
Yeah.
Whether it's a kid or not. And obviously he already knew that this kid was pretty smart. So that's the one thing. And the other thing, and we already kind of talked about this, but, you're saying like religious or quasi-religious society. But I said, why don't they know? And specifically what I mean is, why don't they know why they need a kid to operate their world? And what would happen if there was no kid? Do they know what would happen in that case? Would it turn into a Class L planet like the other planet? Or would it something else happen? I know that they said, we didn't really see, aren't these supposed to be cloud cities or something? Because I didn't really see any kind of evidence of that. Maybe I missed the special effect of that.
There's a good bit at the beginning where they show sort of a panorama shot of the city, and you can see the lava below, and you can see the things floating, and it looks very much like BioShock Infinite.
Okay, well, I'll have to take another look at that, but I was kind of...
I must have missed
that. I was confused by that point, but it makes me wonder, why a kid? Why don't they know why the kid still exists? Or, I always have a problem with the societies that don't understand how this big tech thing operates. And it's not just Star Trek that has done this kind of trope. I've seen it on other shows, and it always bugs me because I guess I'm the kind of person that always wants to know, how does that work? Right? I may not understand exactly how a cell phone works, but I may know the basics of how a cell phone works, that if I needed to look into it, I would at least know where to start. Right? So,
right. Okay. And there would be a counter argument to that as well.
Here's my theory.
Okay.
The reason they don't know is because these are not the people who actually built any of this. It looks like some kind of colony world. Like if this place really was a lava-strewn rock, it doesn't seem like these people would evolve there. Working on that principle, this was originally a colony, maybe of another race, and these people who are now living there either inherited it, or let's say they were an underclass, or a servant class, or a servant race, who eventually overthrew the masters and took over their world. Wow. And inheriting all the machinery and the equipment. Having no real understanding of how it works, but just knowing it's there. So these weren't the original creators of it. And that's why they don't necessarily understand it.
Well, I would go with that, except I would say these are the children of the children of the children of the children of the original colonists.
Right.
But my problem is still with your technology thing is, so who are the mechanics? Because you can't tell me that this thing eventually is not going to need to be tuned up.
Yeah.
Or you're going to need some help desk guy to reboot the terminal, or some hardware guy to fix the interface that does the pokey thing into his head.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, he needs a new tube. You know, it's like, like there's all those tubes in there. It's like, you got to think, well, you know, there's a busted up tube. We got to fix that, you know, because otherwise
you're getting a smart error on drive 12 of the radar array,
exactly.
man. Somebody's not going to need to go into that tower and swap it out.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm going to jump back here to 1956 and the Krell.
Okay.
The Forbidden Planet, the Krell machinery, self-maintaining, self-lubricating, self-evolving, self-fixing. We've seen it before. Granted, it was different age, different series, but
Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah. This could be a machinery on that level that can repair itself, that can do upgrades, that can automatically remove that RAID drive.
But if the AI is that good, why does it still need a meat interface?
Yeah.
And there's the counter argument for your Krell, sir.
I mean,
the meat interface is actually just a sacrifice.
I mean, you could argue that the
can't go there.
Mechanics are like synths, you know, as seen in Picard season 1, you know, the Harveys of the day who, you know,
so you have the toaster patrol that maintains all the machinery.
Well, yeah, they're not smart enough to be able to run the machinery, but they're smart enough to run, they're smart enough to repair a certain aspect of the machinery because they have the right programming, you know?
Yeah. Or you can go to the argument that the AI is only so good, but that human or humanoid brain function is such that they can do nonlinear processing.
That would be an approach, yeah.
That no matter how good an AI is, it's still going to think like a machine.
It's relying on the parallel processing capabilities of the brain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that human brains can analyze and process facts in a nonlinear fashion.
Yeah. That's a good take.
Yeah. Well, this one went quite a different way, much different ways than I thought, but all of it interesting and none of it blameable. So I'm not going to play Blaine because it was all on topic. So
there you go.
Blaine does not get a Blaine call this time. Okay, so that's it for my nose. So let's move on to our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
And for those of you who love her and we miss her.
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses.
Okay.
Tilly was pretty good.
Yep.
Or still is.
She still is.
Okay. Well, for the not good enough, this is Kim B. She writes, not enough hot Spock. I can understand that. That actor is a pretty good looking dude. Next thing is super advanced medical science, but not very smart people. Yeah, I think we've talked about that. And finally, Pike's hair is a little bit too much Johnny Bravo, even for Kim. As she says, she loves his guy's hair, but come on. I admit, it did look a little bit Johnny Bravo in certain scenes.
You want to see me comb my hair?
Oh.
Yep.
Johnny Bravo was my favorite.
Originally, I thought it was just James, the augmented sailor, who thought this, but since then, I've come to realize that this is turning into an internet meme of internet memes. In fact, probably the biggest internet meme of this show so far is Pike's hair, who they're what they are now calling Pike's Peak. So
Oh.
That's it.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah,
Well, at least he wasn't wearing his like green fetish leather outfit like he was last week.
The tummy shirt.
Yeah. That was not a good. Yeah, the fact it was shiny as well. That was not a good look.
I mean, the thing about it to me is that he's got some damn good hair, and if I had hair like that instead of what I have right now, which I said a few weeks ago that since COVID I've been completely bald. Well, I'm not completely bald anymore, at least for right at the moment. I've kind of got a 3-week growth on my head, but still, if I could grow hair like Anson Mount, I would
Have hair like Anson Mount.
yeah, I would just,
I'd not stop at that. I'd want the whole package.
yeah. I mean, he's a handsome man.
Well, referring to Kim's earlier comment, yeah, he's still no Spock though.
Yeah, she did say on a previous episode that she thought that he was the hot Spock. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, he's the one. Ethan Peck's turned her into a Spock believer. So yeah. All right, LT, you want to read Wes?
Okay. Yep. West from Minnesota says, Pike should have done more to prevent this. I get that he's bound by the Prime Directive, but if I was him, I would have done whatever it took to prevent what happened to that kid. I was expecting him to do a lot more to prevent this.
Well, I mean, Prime Directive, right? Like,
And look, he's already gotten his hand slapped for, dancing on the edge of the Prime Directive. So maybe he's a little sensitive to
I mean, maybe Prime Directive doesn't apply because they're a warp-faring civilization, but in general, the Federation does not meddle itself.
meddle in the affairs of sovereign
Yes.
worlds.
Well, I guess the problem was the kid's father maybe didn't know or have any experience with the Federation, so wasn't aware that if he had requested asylum for himself and his son and his biological kid, that Pike would be bound by Federation law to provide that asylum.
Yeah.
He was too busy being arrogant.
That's true. The dad was a little bit, he did have a stick up his butt, yep. Because he was superior.
And he used the word abattoir.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Well, and just to go on with that, Brian from Colorado said, I didn't see any guardrails on the walkways in the floating city. Someone could just fall off and into the lava below. Futuristic OSHA violations. They don't have seat belts in the starships. They don't have appropriately placed grab handles.
Board artifacts don't have it either,
It's a safety violation all the way around, mister.
I'm just going to point out how the Dominion actually is one of the few races that figured out you need to put seatbelts in your spaceships. Because in the episode The Ship, the Jem'Hadar, who are all dead, granted, are hanging from the ceiling from basically their seatbelts. So there's a positive side to the Dominion.
Well, I would say, maybe the Jem'Hadar don't have inertial dampers on their ships. because they're so tough. Inertial dampeners are for girls.
I will bounce off the wall.
I will grip the armrests of my seat when I'm going into those turns.
Yes. Well, maybe these are very religious people, in my opinion. They don't need the guardrails because if you fall off into the lava below, it's a sacrifice to the lava gods.
I think that's a bridge too far, sir. You're rubbing all your religious presuppositions onto them. I didn't see that they were that way at all. I'll argue that they're so advanced that they're smart enough not to get that close to the edge.
I don't know if it's my background, but I just see lava and immediately think we should throw someone in it.
So you're that guy. I was going to say some of the guys that I've hung around are the ones that be looking over the edge going, it's a long way down there. And somebody would be trying to spit and, it's either that or lean over the edge and going, hey, it's a long way down there.
Wiring up the bungee cord.
Yep. Or let me get over the edge and take a selfie.
This is the last picture of John before he disappeared into the lava.
Yep. It's the lava, precious.
All right. So, what do you got for not good enough, James?
Okay. My not good enough. Noonien-Singh is a low rent Kamina drummer.
I don't know who Kamina drummer is.
Oh, and see, I would say you take that back. She is not a low rent drummer. She's the Star Trek analog of drummer, sir.
No. The Kamina drummer is a character from The Expanse who is arguably my favorite character on the show. And really? I feel the writers with Noonien-Singh have literally ripped off Common Drummer, even down to the look. You look at Common Drummer as she appeared on The Expanse, and then how they have Noonien-Singh and the attitude and the toughness, and it is a literal rip. They need to rethink what they've done with that character.
I will agree but disagree. I think that she's in the right trope. But I don't know if I would quite go as far to say she's a knockoff.
Yeah.
But I do wholeheartedly support your analogy, sir.
And I think the other thing, the need to try harder with Noonien-Singh is, why would you keep the name Noonien-Singh, who is responsible for a genocidal war on Earth across multiple continents? It would be like, Bob Hitler. It's not a name you run across. I don't think Noonien-Singh would be a name you would run across.
Except maybe on a Seinfeld episode or something. I think there was a Seinfeld episode that there was a guy named Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on top of that, you would also have at least maybe 2 generations after the eugenics wars who had seen somebody called Noonien-Singh and be like, yeah, she fell down the stairs, or he fell out of a window. It would not be a name you would want to keep around.
She did say she got picked on.
Drop the Noonien, just go with the Singh part, or drop, because how many Singhs are going to be around with,
yeah, with a population of 500 million, there's a lot of people called Singh.
There's a lot of Singhs, so drop the Noonien part and just be, Lon Singh, and no one will be the wiser. So,
yeah, exactly. I find that part of it. I mean, you could argue that maybe they reclaimed the name at some point, but yes, still share the name with the person responsible for the eugenics wars. It's not a good look.
No, it's not.
That ends it for me. I think literally that's the only thing I feel that they really need to try harder on. I think I get the idea of the character. I like the idea of the character, and they're following a great trope of the hard ass security officer, which I think LT brought up. It's in the vein of Worf, it's in the vein of Shax, it's in the vein of Kira to a large extent. These characters, but I feel it suffers from the fact that you had this great character in The Expanse, and if you're a fan of The Expanse, I think the parallels look too real.
Oh, so Kamina was in The Expanse?
Yes.
I haven't gotten that far in The Expanse yet, so that's why I don't recognize that name.
She first appears as Fred's assistant or XO on the station.
Yep.
Yeah. LT? What about you? I assume, James, that's it for you?
That is all there is for me.
Okay. What do you got, LT? You got anything?
I carried it in the nose, and I'll just say it again. I think that we could have used a little more exposition around air quote things on the planet.
Oh, 100% agree.
Yeah.
That if we'd had a little more exposition about the other colony and what exactly was going on, and just a few other things about their culture, maybe, then I could have been maybe up more closer to 10.
Yeah.
I could have given them those 4 or 5 tenths back, but
yeah, it's like they trimmed it a little bit too much. It's like with a couple of minutes more, just explanation, not really exposition, but just explanation, it would have helped the show a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like for example, the one security guard's motivation, I would have liked to have known what motivated him.
Yes.
Right?
False gods, this is just faith. It doesn't really it was not going to really happen. You've got an alternative, anything. You could have literally thrown in,
and he said,
2 lines.
Because he said he was trying to protect the first servant.
Yes, he did.
But is he protecting him from what?
Right.
Them?
I assume it was them.
From his fate?
Probably.
So, yeah, like I said, I could have just done with a little more explanation around the edges. And
totally agree.
Even though I thought it was cute and I liked her character and I liked the actress, I'm just kind of stumbling a little bit over so Pike hasn't seen her in all these years. It's like, you didn't write, you didn't call, you didn't send flowers. Yeah, but she had enough, enough, I still like you, Chris, to hang out, get busy. But I could have almost done with a little more explanation about, so he rescued her from a shuttle and, maybe a little more explanation of what he found out then, because this just sort of hit me as we're sitting here talking about it. So he's been there before and he's been exposed to their culture. Well, did none of this stuff ever come up when they were on their first trip there? Were they just in between kids plugged into the machine so he didn't really know the wheres and the why-fors? And then did your xenosociology team just sort of drop the ball when they're asking about how their culture functions and they're doing all the, first, second, third contacty sort of things? How did this never come up before?
I would guess that we see that they're slightly hostile to outsiders.
Well, yeah.
And maybe the xenobiology team, it was literally a case of they just showed them the shiny oversurface of the race. Yeah, we saw that. We've seen that before with TNG. the episode with James Cromwell, where
which episode with James Cromwell?
Oh goodness! I mean, the original, the next gen, the candidate planet for the Federation membership, where they have a number of troops that they genetically engineered to fight in a war, and they basically shipped them off to an island. The Federation was pretty, had the wool pulled over its eyes on that one. So I could see it happening here if they only showed them the shiny bits of society and didn't show them that, oh yeah, we got a kid in the back room who's hooked up to a computer, possibly for ceremonial reasons.
Well, I like I said, I'm only going from the standpoint of, you brought up this whole, the religious angle of it.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time, if there's something like that, there's going to be more iconography and more chitty chat about it. And it's going to be a bigger part of their lives. And, wouldn't they talk about it more? And I agree with you. I'll go with they were hostile to outside cultures, but obviously Pike made some inroads because it was, obviously he was getting friendly with some of the natives.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they've contacted them before, but obviously, did this part just never come up in conversation?
Yeah. I'm going with this is one of the sacred rituals they keep hidden behind a door.
You're going, wow, what a great city you have here that floats in the sky and all this amazing stuff. How did you do it? It's like, we don't talk about that.
Well, they also mentioned they don't share the technology with outsiders.
Well, true. Just because they don't share the technology doesn't mean that they're not going to rub your nose in it like Dr. Abattoir did.
Well, given that attitude, I could see them saying, if you ask them about how it all works, the rest of them being dismissive and just saying, you wouldn't understand. It's beyond your comprehension. Just being that kind of crappy, having that kind of crappy attitude. Keeping it hidden and from people who are trying to find out.
Okay.
And this actually leads on something. I was thinking about perhaps this making the kids suffer, that they're all aware of it and they all know about it, is also, as part of the religion, it's actually bringing them all together. That they're all aware of this, that it's joint, if you like, joint responsibility. It's actually some kind of weird bonding that brings all the people of this race. Maybe they had a lot of conflict, and this was some way of bringing them all together. So even if it is, it remains fake, they still believe it's real, and it gives them this common bond.
Well, and I was going to go back to, well, who says it's fake? Maybe this actually does something important, but it's almost like we've gone into sort of a Hunger Games angle here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Well, this time I'm saying it's dangerously close to.
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
Anyway, I just had, is that it? You, LT?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to keep it going here. They are advanced without being advanced. So they have this, wonderful society without knowing how it works. They have this kid strapped into the great computer, Landrew or whatever. I have to look up what the name of that one Jeffrey Combs played. But they don't know how that works. They have this wonderful medical knowledge and medical technology. Was that inherited? And they don't know how that stuff worked, or is that stuff that they actually developed? That wasn't really explained, and that was enough for me to make me go, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Agamus.
Then you have their ships, and their ships were kind of lame. And I guess the ship that actually fired upon them was the one from the colony, right? It wasn't the actual planet.
Right.
But still, it was lame. And so, if the society is supposed to be that advanced, and even the offshoot of the society we would assume is advanced, why are they so lame? So that's where I'm going with that. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't like when we see people like that. It's like, like you said, LT, where are the engineers? Where are the people that are trying to figure out how stuff works? That's the kind of issue that I see with that. I mean, there's going to be people that in any society that is going to look at something like even Klingons and go, ugh, how does that disruptor work? I want to see. So, they start taking it apart and, oh, I could make it a better disruptor.
I wanted to kill an enemy in a single blast.
Yes. I want this disruptor to kill 3 Romulans instead of 1 at a time, So,
And I want the Romulan dogs to suffer.
Anyway, my point being, in any society that we've seen, there are going to be people that need to figure out things. Like,
maybe the kid is the only one like that. Maybe the kid who's raised separately, he's the only one in that society who is actually the smart one.
Maybe.
Who actually thinks and is allowed to have opinions and learn things.
Maybe. Or they're subservient to him.
Yeah.
In a way.
Or maybe he is the smartest of the smart.
But they also said that he got his position by lottery. Right? Now, that's a lottery you don't want to win.
Oh, it is the Hunger Games. LT was right.
Yep. Definitely not the lottery that I want to win. So
it's Magellan's Powerball.
Yeah.
Match the 6 number, gets strapped to the chair.
So anyway, I think we said quite a bit on the not good enough section. So
we did.
I think it's time to move on to our feedback section and open hailing frequencies. Okay. So our first bit of feedback, of course, is a voicemail from Jeff X-Force 11. Here we go.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. It's Jeff, X-Force 11, leaving my feedback about the most recent episode of Strange New Worlds. So, this was a moral dilemma episode of a father trying to save his son at the cost of the world that he's from. And mirroring that with Rebinge trying to save his daughter. And also Pike looking at his future and being able to recover from that. And the costs that all that entail. I thought this was a powerful tale. I thought it was a well-written one and a one that kind of examined things in a different way than I have seen in a while. So I particularly enjoyed all of that and just excited to hear what everybody's going to say about this episode. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, X-Force 11, for your feedback yet again. keeping that new streak alive.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So I think the new streak is at 2. And, it's going to take a long time for somebody else to get to 68. So, and you have dibs on it. So yeah, it's definitely a moral episode, a moral dilemma episode. And one of those types of episodes like we talked about where it's like this kind of falls in the face of what we kind of think is acceptable in society versus what another society may think is acceptable.
Well, this is always the dilemma with the Federation of the differences between all the races and what they think is correct.
Yeah.
Kim and I just talked about this with the Klingons. Of the Klingons don't believe leaving you're injured to suffer is a good thing. You
Right.
go into the medical facility and you shoot them because how are you monsters doing this?
Right.
You're denying them their honorable deaths.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this is one of the great things I think about Star Trek because it makes you think of those kind of things.
Yeah.
From a Klingon perspective, what you are doing is horrific.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And, makes me think of that Lower Decks episode, the same episode, of course, that had Naked Time in it. It's Naked Time. What's the name of that episode, LT? You remember? I know which one it is. I just don't remember the name of it.
That wasn't I Excretus.
Yes, it was. I Excretus.
And the name you were looking for is Agamus.
Thank you, Agamus. That was driving me crazy. Yes, Agamus. Anyway, we see Tindy have to go through a simulation where she's supposed to kill a Klingon. And, first she doesn't want to do it. Then she's just going to give him a sedative or something. And, she fails by the fact that he's going to live.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I do remember one of the episodes of Enterprise where the doctor, because when the Klingons have that whole plague, the doctor needs a patient to study, and
Right.
the Klingon he's working with just shoots one of the sick Klingons and says, "There's your patient, or there's your sample."
There you go.
And he says to the doctor, he died in the cause. He died for the furtherance of the Empire. It's an honorable cause. I've given him a great death.
yeah.
And as I recall, Phlox was none too happy.
No,
Yes.
he wasn't. Yeah.
He's like horrified.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is it for our feedback. That goes into our other notes. So, James, let's start with you. I don't know about the rest of us, but I think you're the only one that has other notes. So, unless some stuff came up as we were talking about it. So,
I think we talked about a number of things
yeah.
already about whether this was religious or whether it was actually physical. So we kind of hashed that one through. One important question here is, was Magellan originally called Mustafar during the Age of the Jedi? Because we know it's a shared universe. Deep Space Nine proved that back in season 1.
Say what?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's the 3rd episode where Odo is charged with murder. If you freeze frame and look at the guy's itinerary, he actually came from Alderaan.
Oh.
The Star Wars spelling of Alderaan as well.
Well, that could have just been.
I'm sorry, sir. I will not die on that hill.
Yeah, I would just go to geeks on the graphics section, putting stuff like that in the actual episode. I wouldn't say that Star Wars and Star Trek are part of the same universe. That's a little far for me. And if that's true, does that mean that the weird alien species from Discovery will suddenly show up in Star Wars?
James, That is not the way.
Oh, very good. Well, you could argue that they're actually also separated by an extremely long period of time because, at the crawl in episode 4 did say a long, long time ago. So,
In a galaxy
Far
away.
okay, the other thing is, so if Prospect 7 is barely above subsistence level, where are they getting all these armed spacecraft from?
And I would counter that with, how did they get there?
Well, they had two ships at one point. If they have a limited number of ships, that's an awful, losing 2 of them, or that's quite a lot of resources to lose.
And maybe so, but I'm not willing to say that they took the space Uber.
Bajoran style space sailing ships. The old Bajoran.
Oh, the solar
light ships.
sails?
Yes.
Well, we saw that in a previous episode.
Yep. Other races use them, but they seem to have a lot of spacecraft for a subsistence level, which was pointed out I think twice in the episode. I think it was only once.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they've got a few ships up on blocks in the front yard, and they just got those 2 running.
Well,
because all the engineers went to Prospect 7.
Maybe actually people defect from Prospect 7 because they reject the floating hell and take spaceships with them. That could work.
You've got to get there somehow.
Yeah, maybe the smart people go to Prospect 7 because they're denied opportunities at Magellan.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's true. I mean, Magellan does have a pretty good health plan, though.
Yes, it does.
There's no chance of promotion.
Yeah.
I don't want the top job.
True.
So, the next thing is, did Allura, when she fell on the guard that was holding it, did she deliberately stab him?
She totally shanked him.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Kim and I have had a debate about that. Yep.
She totally shanked him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the way they fell with that knife, there's no way.
Yeah, because it was so perfectly placed where I assume his heart was.
Hmm.
That's it. Yeah, that did seem a little much.
Yeah. Yeah. I immediately thought that as well. That, essentially, I think she was basically trying to not just quiet him, but also kind of covering him up so that, I think that she knew more than she was letting on. And,
he would have spilled the beans.
Yeah. Suddenly there would have been this.
She's the reason we didn't get any more exposition, because she killed him before he could talk.
Yeah. Suddenly, he would have revealed the truth about Prospect 7, that they weren't, this marooned
alien species.
They weren't aliens. They were, Magellans, and that they were, just they must have realized that the sacrifice that was going on didn't need to happen. They were able to.
I'm with you.
They were able to survive, maybe in a difficult way, in a harsh environment, and you could argue that Magellan, without Golden Boy strapped in, would become a harsh environment, but they would be able to survive. It's just that they have not tried to survive that way. So that,
that while Magellan may be a lovely place, it's still a golden cage.
Right.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
And the guys that go to Prospect 7, much as one of my favorite quotes from Dante's Inferno, is it better to rule in heaven or rule in hell or serve in heaven? So it may be a crap planet, but I am the master of my fate. I am the king of my environment, and I don't have to strap kids to a strange machine.
I am the
That's a good
master of
take.
my domain.
Do you think it's kept secret from the majority of the population?
Absolutely.
That would be another reason for her to shank him.
I think that the grim details are kept because, as she said, Alora said, well, only the inner circle or whatever she called them go into the chamber. So the majority of the people may think that, to just do a modern American analogy, they may say, well, the first servant's going to, going to his office at Camp David. They don't know. They just know he goes off to do whatever good things he's doing.
Yeah, the kids playing, kids on the farm playing with the dog.
Yeah, it's or something that they did say that he's ascended to his throne. So there's that level of mythology in it,
right?
That still goes with the truth, but they don't. I don't think the average person knows the gory details.
Do you think and the other side of that is, do you think they know about Prospect 7? That the average person would know about that's also part of the big secret.
I think that they know about Prospect 7, but they still don't know, again, the details.
Yeah, they don't know the details of it.
It's sort of like this is just some group of aliens that live there and we don't interact with them.
Yeah.
And, there's nobody on Majalis that's actually saying, well, they're us, but they're not us.
Yeah. They're other. Cast them out. Interesting. And I think the final thing, I think there was also the theme here within this episode with Elder Gamal of the classic, this crap is fine. What's happening is just fine until it affects me personally. And then he has to, I've got to save my kid. I thought it was bringing up that theme as well through this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's almost the ultimate not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm all for this, but not until it actually affects somebody I know.
Precisely.
Or maybe the exposure to all these Federation people weakened his resolve.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great take for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little of this, a little of that, but
Mm-hmm.
He was fine until he was exposed to the Federation. This is why you have to keep outsiders and aliens out. They corrupt the pure Magellans.
That's right.
Boy.
They introduce wrongthink.
Oh yeah, nice use of wrongthink. Yeah. And that, I think, is all my other notes from this episode.
LT, what about you?
I'm done.
Okay.
I think I've said all I need to say.
Well, I just want to kind of piggyback on what James just said about this kind of crap is just fine until it affects me personally. I think maybe we got a little bit of the idea of another perspective, that like a lot of times you get stuck in a certain mindset until you're shown a different way of looking at things. And perhaps that's what happened to Elder Gamal. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is exactly what happened in that whole transporter thing. I was a little confused by that. Was it Gamal and his son working together to survive him, or was it something else? Like, I didn't really understand how that happened and what the A plus B plus C equals D, how that kind of pieced together.
I think Gamal was panicked by the fact that the plan initially didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a hasty backup. Transport the kid to a pod on the Enterprise and then come back later and figure it out. I think he was thinking on his feet, and this was a emergency plan.
Oh, so you want to go with the riff that it was Gamal's plan all along to get captured by the aliens to get his son out.
Yeah, definitely.
And he was in cahoots with the other guys, and that this was just his opportunity to get his kid somewhere, quote unquote, safe.
Yes, absolutely. Gamal was in on it, or the instigator.
I could see him being the instigator.
His reaction at the end, I think, showed that when he was talking to number one in the brig, and the way his attitude changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he said he failed him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you saw that change there. I think this was Gamal's plan. I think the people who had a similar mindset, like the guard, maybe the people of Prospect 7, and what ultimately happened was he ended up having to think on his feet. So that whole transporter bit was, as you would say, a Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Unless anyone has any more to say, I'm going to get into the references section, and I didn't have all that much to say for the spot the references section. Obviously, there were some similarities with a few other episodes. The Cloud Minders, I think is the name of the episode. Because they live in a city in the clouds. So that was one.
Bespin.
Yeah. Also, at one point, Elder Gamal says something like, get that butcher's knife away from whatever they called the kid, the chosen one or first servant. Yes.
Servant.
Get the butcher's knife away from the first servant. And that, of course, reminded me of the very long titled Discovery episode. So, and this one also had a very long title. Discovery Season 1, Episode 4, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, which to me is still one of my favorite episode titles, even though to me, it didn't have very much to do with that episode. So,
it's art, man.
Well, everyone remembers, things in the episodes of TNG, the Child, the Dauphin, the, Contagion, Conundrum, these
Data's Day.
these one or two word titles, and if it's the Outcast, if it's two words, the first word is the,
Right.
There were a lot of those in TNG, so I don't mind these long titled ones. It is, and if you think about it, TOS had a lot of long titled, like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. And
yeah.
The Children will lead.
Yeah. What's that other one? For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. Titles like that. This one fits in there quite well. So no complaints. Okay. So I believe that is it for our spot the oh, sorry. No, it's not. I forgot two things.
No.
First thing, it made me think of a blessing from Deanna Troi, who said on a few episodes of TNG, she said, with joy and gratitude. So, yeah. So that was one that I picked up on right away.
Wasn't that the first thing she said at the end of the first episode when the big space starfish flew away?
Yes.
I'm feeling
yes,
joy and gratitude.
Yes. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
I picked up on that one right away. And one of the guards, I think the first guard that we see in there was just someone who seems to be going for most Star Trek characters ever. Trying to beat Jeffrey Combs or James Cromwell, whatever, whoever's streak is Eva Blackwell, and she played a lot of Us Nullis characters and several aliens in Discovery, and we've seen her. We mentioned her a couple of episodes ago, and now we see her again. This time as one of the guards of the first servant. So, yeah,
nice.
I recognized her right away. That face. It's kind of interesting with her because she's an actress like that does actual speaking roles and is a stunt person. So, she's active in both. So, she's busy. She's definitely busy.
And she's done some, I don't know if she's body doubled for anybody doing stunt work, but I know that she's been involved in several of the fight scenes.
She's body double, I think, for Rebecca Romaine, or at least she has been.
And I cannot think of his name, but there was a guy that did a lot of the same thing in TNG and
Dennis Danger Matalone. Yeah. Yes. I remember him. In fact, I've heard him interviewed not that long ago. Pretty interesting guy. He was
a lot of the stuntmen often are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like you gotta be a certain kind of person to want to get into that. And it's also a certain kind of person that is successful at it. You can get into it and not have a very long career at it. You can get hurt.
Right.
There are many stories like LT and I know of a TNG episode where one of the stunt people died a few seasons back.
Gosh.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing. It's not to be,
and a lot of the stunt guys, if they're good at it, then even if they get older or they get hurt, they'll end up being a coordinator or they'll still be working with the stunt work.
Yeah. They get good at, being able to coordinate the whole thing. So
you talk about an ocean nightmare. Stunts seem like one of those things that would be along with the insurance person's head exploding.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why a lot of times you've got actors who are capable of doing it, but they won't let them do it just because of the insurance.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, I think that's it for our Spot the References, at least as far as I'm concerned. So let's go to our Shipwide announcements. And let's go to our news section. And of course, Wes Huntington has provided us with news again this week. So here we go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wes Huntington, one of the two co-hosts of the Twin Cities Trekkies podcast, and this is your Shipwide announcements for this week. This week's episode of the Ready Room lasted about an hour. Typically, the episodes of the Ready Room last between 30 and 35 minutes. The guest this week was head honcho Alex Kurtzman. Will Wheaton interviewed him and talked about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, why Anson Mount was good for the role of Captain Pike, why the Gorn showed up in Strange New Worlds prior to the original series. And he also teased about very exciting news about future Star Trek, which included possibly a crossover. There was also one featurette on the props of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. There was also a featurette on Star Trek's shocking twists. And finally, there was an exclusive clip of Episode 7 titled The Serene Squall, which will guest star Jesse James Keitel, best known for the ABC crime drama Big Sky. Here's what's making news this week in the Star Trek universe for all you Talk Through Media Star Trek podcast listeners. As I mentioned in the end of the Ready Room segment of the Shipwide announcements, Jesse James Keitel will be guest starring in the next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds as Dr. Aspen in the episode The Serene Squall. Keitel is openly trans and goes by the she, they pronouns. She is best known for her role in ABC's Big Sky, which has just been renewed for a third season. We have exciting Season 3 of Picard news to share. First off, we have LeVar Burton revealing that Geordi actually has a family. His daughter Mika, who was one of the co-hosts of the last 2 Star Trek days for Paramount Plus, will be playing one of his 2 daughters. LeVar Burton has been critical in the past of the TNG writers making Geordi handling his relationships awkward, with the opposite sex being a tired trope. The next piece of Season 3 news comes from Marina Sirtis. She says that the producers felt like Nemesis wasn't the proper send-off for the Next Generation crew, and she says that they celebrated the TNG cast throughout this season. And finally, Brent Spiner at FedCon in Bonn, Germany over the past weekend revealed that Season 3 probably will be coming in February of 2023. Here's some exciting Prodigy news. Producer Aaron J. Watke, one of the writers and producers of Star Trek Prodigy, did some clarifications of the USS Dauntless that appeared in episode 10, which aired back in February. Watke took to Twitter and explained that the Dauntless that was seen in that episode of Prodigy is based on the one that was seen in the Voyager episode Hope and Fear. Walke also revealed that the NCC registry of the Dauntless, 80816, is actually after executive producer Patrick Krebs, specifically his birthday, and the NCC 76884 is actually Aaron J. Walke's birthday. Tommy International is jumping into Star Trek with something big and heavy. The toy maker has announced a die-cast model of the original USS Enterprise that they hope to deliver next year if they can gather enough pre-orders through a crowdfunding campaign that started this week. The thing is over 32 inches long and weighs nearly 20 pounds. Pre-orders are only for the United States and will retail at $599 US. The crowdfunding campaign runs through July 8th. Pre-orders will only be charged in July if they have reached the goal of 5,000 pieces ordered. If they do reach it, production would begin in the fall with deliveries scheduled for the summer of 2023. And finally, we've got some movie news from the head of Paramount himself, Brian Robbins. Speaking to Variety recently, off the high of the last 2 weeks of Paramount's offering of Top Gun Maverick being number 1 at the box office, he took a little time to talk about the status of the currently untitled 14th film in the Star Trek film series, which is currently slated to be released in theaters next December. Robbins said, quote, "We're deep into it with J.J. Abrams, and it feels like we're getting close to the starting line and getting excited about where we are going creatively." According to previous reporting, Abrams and director Max Shackman have solicited at least 2 scripts. The latest of reports revealed a script from Josh Friedman, fresh off of Avatar 2, and Cameron Squires from WandaVision, based on an earlier draft by Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robinson Dorette. In that same interview with Variety, Robbins talked in general about his focus moving forward with Paramount, where he again mentioned the long-term prospects of the studio's franchises, which included Star Trek. He said, "Going forward, I'm focused on our franchises. We're fortunate that we have amazing franchises, which we need to lean into. We have adult franchises like Mission Impossible, A Quiet Place, Transformers, and Star Trek. And we have family franchises with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and SpongeBob. You've got to have multi-year plans for these franchises. You can't just make a movie, see how it does, and then decide to make another one, because if you do that, it will be years between sequels. If the 14th film does come out in December of 2023, it will be one of the longest, if not the longest, gap between films in the Star Trek film series. And finally, do you remember that SETI Alpha 5 prequel show that Nicholas Meyer had written when he was a consulting producer on the first season of Star Trek Discovery? Well, he revealed recently that it may become a Star Trek podcast. This version would be somewhat like an audio drama, according to Nick Meyer, and also he said that if it was successful, we could potentially see it on film at a later date. Star Trek Discovery Season 5 may be entering production, as Michelle Paradise, the showrunner and executive producer of that series, had tweeted out a photo with the Discovery chair saying, "Hello, Toronto." This has led people to believe that Season 5 may have begun production on its 10-episode season. This will be the shortest season of the series so far, as Season 1 was 15, Season 2 was 14, and the previous 2 seasons were 13 episodes apiece. This will be the first season produced exclusively for Paramount Plus, as the streamer seeks to do only 10-episode seasons for its currently airing shows. Prodigy is not included because that is originally a Nickelodeon show, and they had originally ordered 2 seasons of 20 episodes apiece. And sadly for our UK fans, when the streamer does premiere later on this month, you will not be able to see Star Trek The Motion Picture, the Director's Edition, the 4K Ultra HD restoration of that film at launch. The theatrical version, which will also be in 4K, will be available at launch. Twin Cities Trekkies is a weekly podcast dedicated to everything Star Trek. My podcast co-host Mackenzie Flickinger and I talk about everything from the original series all the way through Star Trek Strange New Worlds and everything in between. New episodes are released every Wednesday. You can find Twin Cities Trekkies on every platform you can think of for podcasts. Our social media handles is TC Trekkies Pod for both Facebook and Instagram. You can also reach us by emailing us at tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave us voice messages when you find the podcast at anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies.
Well, thank you so much, Wes, for that news segment. James, I wanted to ask you, since you are a Prodigy podcaster, did you have any thoughts about what Wes said on the Dauntless?
Yes. Kim was pretty sure that was the same ship, and we went back and watched Voyager to look at it, and that was pretty much confirmed. They did seem very similar. Nice touch. It's nice that it's now actual real canon. And I stand by my comment that I think, like the Dauntless dive bomber, they are both ugly. But the Dauntless dive bomber was also an incredibly effective plane. So form over function, or function over form in this case, sometimes wins out.
I'm shocked, sir. The Dauntless was not ugly.
It was not the best looking plane.
Compared to what?
P-51, the final generation, the generation 2 of the P-47, the...
Sorry, I like B models. You and I are going to have a discussion about this after the podcast.
Okay, it was right at the end of the war, but the Seafire, not the Seafire, Sea Fury, sorry. The Seafire couldn't actually land without breaking itself.
I was going to say... Oh, you and your contra-rotating prop British aircraft.
All right. So let's get into Parrot Analytics. And I'm going to do something unusual this week because we are recording a little late this week. Normally we record either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And due to mitigating circumstances beyond our control, we recorded tonight on Tuesday. And in a normal week, we wouldn't have this, but this week we actually have 2 weeks of Parrot Analytics numbers. So I'm going to give them to you. So from 2 weeks ago, Stranger Things was on top at 101.2 times the demand of an average show. Strange New Worlds was at number 5 with 32.6 times, and not too far under the number 4. That was the week of May 21st to 27th. Fast forward to May 28th to June 3rd. Star Trek Strange New Worlds was still at number 5, up just a little tiny bit in the total amount to 32.7, but stayed at number 5. But Stranger Things catapulted itself to 210.1 times the demand of an average show, something we've never seen before. Never. Well, here we have Stranger Things for the week of June 4th to 10th. Went even higher at 212.9 times the demand of an average show. And then we also get The Boys, which basically did a big catapult from number 7 to number 2 with 53. Then we got good old Star Wars stuff, The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi at around 40, or Flag Means Death at 33.3, and Strange New Worlds at number 6, so down a notch, pretty close to the same amount at 32.3 times the demand of an average show. So anyway, its demand is pretty steady. It's just that some other shows are eclipsing it, especially Stranger Things, which I haven't seen any of this season of Stranger Things. So, in fact, I'm a couple of seasons behind on that show. So,
I'm surprised Netflix has enough subscribers to catapult that so high.
Oh, it still does. I mean, it may be it may be kind of going flat to slightly down, but it's still number 1, way above. And I think like Disney is starting to really take a big chunk out of them. But anyway.
But notice the one thing that even though its position has moved a little bit, Strange New Worlds is staying consistently around that 32 and change mark.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Which I think is an excellent sign, because we've seen the other shows that have peaked up and then they've dropped. They've moved more. Yeah. It's like the demand for Strange New Worlds has been right there in the middle, and it's been consistently right there in the middle.
Yeah, it's been consistent pretty much the whole run, which tells me that the show is consistent, which we already know. So, yeah.
It certainly seems to have been.
Yeah. Like I say, this is the first for me, 6 episodes, 9.5 plus, and we got 4 left, which kind of sucks because this show's going to be done in 4 weeks. But still, have you heard anything about when Prodigy's coming back? Is it coming back after Strange New Worlds, or is it you don't know yet?
The rumors are it's supposed to be back. Strange New Worlds finishes and then Prodigy returns.
Yeah, I would be prepared for that to happen, even though we don't really have any knowledge. I mean, maybe I can kind of poke at Wes, because maybe Wes might know. Hey, Wes,
that would be useful. Yeah.
What should we be spending our time on right now? Lower Decks or Prodigy,
The last thing that I heard for Lower Decks was they still said summer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could say, Wes, do we want to, focus our attention on something that rhymes with analogy or something that rhymes with pecs? Anyway.
Warp me.
Yeah. Warp me. Yeah. All right. So to submit your theories and feedback, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. Call 216-232-6146, and you can leave a voicemail. That's true for any of the shows within the Talk Through Media network. You can email us at strangenewworlds@talkthroughmedia.com. Post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, which is at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek TTM. We never say this, and maybe I'll say this time. Also, if you want to comment on a particular post, particular episode, you can also go to talkthroughmedia.com, find the episode, and leave your comment on the episode. So we know, I know, James, you get some comments that way. One of our podcasts that we do for The Walking Dead, we get comments that way. So, that's another way you can leave us feedback as well, like on prior episodes and whatnot. So, just thought of that. All right, LT, take it away.
Well, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can like our page on Facebook. That's facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. And while you're there, write us a review. You can share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post that a new episode is out. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel, where you'll find their latest episodes first. You can subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. And while you're there, give us a rating or a review. You can also go to podchaser.com, where you can rate and review the podcast and even individual episodes. Finally, the best way to help us keep going is to support us via our Patreon. We'd like to thank our Patreon supporters: Andrew Davis, Morning Pace, Trey, Mike, Robert Kaiser, Jeff Gentry, Kevin Lyle, Michael Carrier, Aaron Mays, Jeff Biacco, Brian Shiro, Kim Vogley, Kyle, Mr. Farmer McAdams, James Robbins, and me.
And you.
And me.
Since we have a delegation from several of the other podcasts, I'm going to let you guys talk away about James. You have a couple of these podcasts, so talk about the podcasts that you do.
Well, first of all, we have the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast, where we go over every episode of Deep Space Nine one at a time and talk about them in detail. We go over the plot of the show, walk through the scenes, make comments, overanalyze, add headcanon. Basically, we talk through the whole show, and we also talk about leadership in the show. Are the Starfleet command, are the crew behaving like good managers? And also poke fun at the Ferengi, talk about the ridiculous things that happen, and bring up topics that constantly repeat, like the great love of the use of caves for important things to happen. And of course, hiding behind the moon is the number one plot for when you are trying to not be seen by a spaceship.
Yes.
So that's one of the podcasts. The other one is Star Trek Prodigy, a RebingeIt podcast where we watch each episode of Prodigy and talk about, again, the plot, what happens, what we like, what we don't like, where the holes are, who are the characters, what do they do? And also with that podcast, we have our kid correspondent, Mahi, who gives a unique 7-year-old's view of what the show is like. So arguably its target audience.
And Mahi is quite the genius.
Yes.
She is a smart cookie.
Yes, she is. She has a lot to say for someone of that age.
Yeah. and a really good grasp on the show, I would say, for a 7-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, LT, I'll let you talk about the various things that we do.
Well, besides giving you your blow by blow on Strange New Worlds, very shortly, Brian, Kyle, and I will be taking up arms on the lower decks once again. We just survived another grueling season of Fear the Walking Dead.
Barely.
And on the Walking Dead talk through, we will be coming back this fall when the new episodes drop of the final leg of the final season of the main show.
And it's also worth saying that at some point, we think, but late summer, the Tales from the Walking Dead is going to be on. That's a 6-episode anthology series.
That would be August the 14th.
There you go. So we'll be covering that through the Walking Dead talk through as well. So,
and whenever it shows up, we will be talking about the Isle of the Dead, the Negan and Maggie spin-off series, and wherever Daryl ends up with the Daryl spin-off.
And if the movie ever becomes a thing, we'll cover that too.
Yes, we will.
And of course, we covered Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Ruthie and Me. It'll probably be in the news next week, but there's news that Season 5 has just started, so it's shooting. So we'll be covering that when it comes back. LT is basically taken over as the co-host on the Star Trek Picard cast. So we've recorded the first 5 episodes. I think you have the first 3. The first 4, if you are in the Patreon. The episode 4 will probably be out. I just got to release the edited audio. And we still got to get out episode 4 and 5 of this show. So I'm behind a little bit, but I have reasons.
So doesn't this mark the 5th anniversary that Discovery has been cancelled?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, depending on who you ask, this could be the 30th anniversary of when Discovery was canceled.
Yeah.
Because I think it was canceled almost 5 times per season.
Yeah, we are coming up on the 5th year of Discovery. Like it premiered in September of 2017. So, all right. So anyway, we will finish out the last 5 of Picard. So you'll get the ones that we have already recorded and the ones we haven't. So, James, thank you so much for being here. We'll probably have you on.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We'll probably have you on to do a Picard episode, I think, if you want to do one of those.
Always happy to.
Yeah, and perhaps another one of these. We'll see how it goes. We got only 4 left to do this. So I'm not sure who we're going to get for the last 4, but you might get the call. But definitely, we'll definitely have you on for Picard. That's for sure.
Just put up the bat signal. I will be there.
Great. And so next episode for Star Trek Strange New Worlds will be Season 1, Episode 7, titled The Serene Squall. It is written by Bo DeMeo and Sarah Tarkoff and directed by Sidney Freeland. We don't have a description yet, but we have that information. I got the written and directed by off of Wikipedia. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And I'm James.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Perhaps today is a good day to die.
Kapla.
Kapla!